Today is Friday, May the 16th, and had lots of things to talk about, but I'm going to dive into one thing in particular, and it is that our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has decided he's not going to put forth a new budget. Um, and I am sharing this today because here in Canada, the whole purpose of me vlogging is because the election results have now spoken to me clearly that it's time to figure out how to maybe do something else here with our family and our resources, and how Canada might not be the best place, and how it's hard to watch something great become something less great. And certainly the Canada that I grew up in is not the Canada that my kids are growing up in. And I get a lot of guff from baby boomers about that because they'll still say that this is the best place on earth, or one of them. It's a developed country, like a first world country, to which none of those things I disagree. But at 47 years old, with a young family that wants to have families of their own, I have to be thinking more about the future, whereas baby boomers generally don't do that when it's not contained to their world. They're certainly not thinking about the generations that are coming up behind them. And so I said I wouldn't talk about this stuff, but when I saw that our prime minister just simply doesn't want to table a budget, that he's going to go off of the framework from the last budget, which was the last government, I can see obviously why he's doing that. I'll reserve all personal commentary on that. And I thought maybe I would just walk through some of the items that are included in the budget that he's choosing to continue to uphold, and where the kind of the most obvious missing pieces are. And again, I come to this type of a conversation as a husband, as a father, as a business owner. I don't operating, working in the private sector, trying really hard to create value and create jobs for people. Whereas other people listening to this might be in the public sector where they're not creating value. At best, they might be maintaining it, or at worst, destroying it. And I think that when you watch the number of people moving from the private to the public sector, there's definitely something happening in Canada that I don't think bodes well for our future. But without my little personal quips, the budget said, hey, we're going to, over the next 5 years, we want to build a whole bunch of new houses. That sounds on the surface like pretty awesome, right? Let's build houses for people, because people, you've heard me say it, most of the people that work for me, they're never going to be able to buy a house. But what's obviously missing is that it's not that we don't, in my opinion, not that we don't have enough houses, it's we don't have enough labor, the cost of materials, etc. All that matters. But even more important than that is how hard it is to get permits, to get approvals, to take a piece of land and turn it into a bunch of finished buildings. It's just not as simple as saying we're going to go ahead and build 5 years, but there's no strategy that the government has let its citizens know about in terms of, hey, here's actually how we're going to do it, not just here's a bunch of money. This one, it gets under my skin in particular, which is the capital gains. Are going from 50% to 66.67%. Basically, what that means is the government's like, hey, we know what we'll do. Anyone who buys something, like a business, like an asset for investment purposes, or invests in a business, and if they make more than $250,000 um, on that gain, then we are going to tax 66.67% of it. And most people will say, well, Dylan, who cares? Like, most people aren't going to have a capital gain like that. And that's true. But the people who that does affect are the same people who can help Canada be more productive. They can help Canada be more innovative. They can help Canada be more competitive. You've heard me say Canada doesn't appear to be solving any problems on the world stage. And this is part of the reason why, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're someone who's innovative, you're certainly not going to do it in Canada when you're going to end up spending you're going to get taxed on 66% of your gain instead of 50%, which is what it was before, which probably is still a bit high, but it is what it is. So where are you going to go? If you're an investor, if you own a large corporation, if you're looking to do something really innovative, you're certainly not going to do it in Canada, because that particular tax strategy, or that that tax increase doesn't work for you. And so you're right, the average person, it doesn't affect the lives of, but for people like me who are trying to invest, create jobs, for people, create value, it's a major disincentive to want to do that. The government has said, hey, we're going to put forth $1 billion for a national school food program, which is awesome on the surface, except all of us know that in Canada right now, the public healthcare system is under an enormous amount of strain. And so instead of coming up with a strategy to fix that at all, they're just going to say, let's throw some more money at a national school food program, which again, I think those aren't even like, it just doesn't make sense to me how we're going to go and spend money on giving kids potato chips and juice boxes and foods that ultimately don't make them healthy. And then that's going to put strain on the public healthcare system because more people are going to be sick, seasonal flus, all that sort of stuff. But yet our public healthcare system can't even handle it. So it just seems like it doesn't make any sense to me. The government said they're going to increase student grants and loans by about $1 billion. But of course, there's no real strategy towards how are we going to get our youth engaged in the marketplace. That normally is done because the private sector comes forward and says, hey, we're going to create a bunch of jobs and we're going to bring on young people, we're going to train them and mentor them. But listen to my previous comment about the tax structure, that isn't happening. And so now the government are kind of the only resource or the only opportunity in the marketplace for young people to find work. But I don't see any strategy at a federal level, much less even at provincial levels, where we are helping young people find opportunities in the marketplace that are going to be meaningful. There's $15 billion to boost rental construction, meaning we're going to build a bunch of rentals for people, but there's no kind of no strategy for, well, what happens after that? How do you protect renters? Supply and demand's all out of whack. So renters are being taken advantage of, and there's no policies that are addressing that. The one that gets me specifically, because I think it touches a lot of the folks that I interact with every day, but the home buyers plan where you can take money out of your RSP instead of it being 30,000, I think it's going to go up to 60,000, which again, on the surface sounds great, except nobody who needs that program has that kind of money in their plan. And so again, it's like one of these things that sounds super nice from the government. Oh, wow, you can take out all this money and delay paying tax on it from your RRSP. But most people don't even have that kind of money in their RSP. They're not even earning enough money to put it in their RSP in the first place to be able to take it out to buy an expensive property. So it doesn't make any sense. And then, I mean, I could keep going on and on. I won't even bother talking about the carbon tax, but the last one is that personal income tax is going to be cut from 15% to 14%, which I think is the only thing that got released from Mark Carney himself. So 1%, a 1% reduction for the middle class. All of you who are listening to this, think about how much money you make, times it by 1%, divide it by 12. I think it works out to like $900 a month is what you're going to get some relief for, which is hardly anything because on the other side, you've got the costs of things going up. So a little bit more of a sticky commentary today, a little bit more edgy because it just frustrates me that as an individual working in the private sector, as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, we work so hard to be profitable, to create value, to provide a foundation that people can build on top of. And then what happens with all of the funding and bureaucracy that we have to deal with, we have a government that doesn't seem to want to do the same thing. And I get it. It's just what governments are. They just spend money. There's no incentive to do anything but that. And it's all broken. But when it comes down to, hey, watching something great become something less great, which is my feeling right now on Canada, um, I just would rather go somewhere where either all of that pain has already been digested, like Spain, and people are now on the rebuilding side where the economy is coming up, productivity is coming up, the country is generally starting to move in and up and to the right, or you go to the US where they're already up and to the right, and I think probably about to hit a golden era if they're not doing it already. And hang around in Canada as an individual in my position just doesn't seem like a great way to set our family up for future success. And so if today someone asked me, am I going to stay or am I going to go? It's like I probably can't go quickly enough.